I now want to introduce Chris, who grew up in Christchurch. He spent 9 years living in California before moving back to New Zealand and Palmerston North in 2007. And this is a story from his time in California.
So I'm standing at the base of the Brown Wall, which is a crag in California's Joshua Tree National Park, which is famous for its rock climbing. And I'm looking up the twin slanting cracks of the route called Captain Kronos. And I'm studying it, and I'm gathering the nerve to try to have a go at leading it again. And I'm nervous. And I'm nervous for two reasons. I'm nervous because leading is a different game to top roping. When you top rope, the rope comes down to you from above and will catch you almost as soon as you fall. When you lead, you trail the rope behind you, and you have to clip it to gear that you place in the rock as you climb. And if you fall twice the distance to your last piece of gear. So the stakes are higher. There's more you have to do to keep yourself safe. And if you fall, there's a bigger risk that you'll get hurt. And I'm nervous because this climb and I have history. It's defeated me twice before. In fact, this climb is the scene of my worst ever lead fall. This climb is my nemesis, and I've come back to do battle with it again. The first time I tried to lead it was 4 years ago, and it was when I was just learning to lead. And the guidebook said it was graded 5.7, which is easy enough for a first lead. But I didn't get very far before I was exhausted, and I was unwilling to go any further. And I came down, and Matt finished it, and he said it was more like a 5.9 than a 5.7, which is far too hard for an early lead. And so just another of Joshua Tree's undergraded rock climbs. It's infamous for them. The next time I climbed it was 2 years later. I was a better climber. Well, I wanted to prove that I was a better climber, so I had another go. I came back to have another go at climbing it, and I got further that time. But again, I found myself in over my head, and I reached a point where I could find no secure purchase. I just climbed to the rock as long as I could, and then I fell. A friend told me later, might have been years later, that the scariest thing was I fell completely silently. I don't remember that. I just remember that I found myself dangling upside down, far too close to the rocks beneath me. The rope running painfully through my crotch, hooked behind my leg on the nut tool of my harness. I tried to get back on the route and finish it, but I was scraped from my fall and I was badly shaken. So I quickly abandoned that and I abseiled down to retrieve the gear. So it's 2 years later, I've come back, got 2 more years of climbing experience under my belt, and I've come back to have another go at conquering Captain Kronos. So I'm here with Michael this time. We do the pre-climb safety checks, and then I start up. The start goes easily enough, and then as I get a bit higher, the crack gets wider, it starts to flare, it gets harder. I struggle on, I want to do it cleanly, but eventually I rest on the rope to gather my strength before continuing. I'm above the point where I retreated the first time. I get higher and I reach the point that I fell from on my second attempt. And this time, where I could find nothing to hold on to, apart from to just pull on either side of the crack like this, unable to let go with either hand to either keep climbing or to put some more gear in to catch me. Now I know that nothing of the crack is actually all the hold I need. I just place one hand above the other in it, move securely up through the seam where I fell last time, and soon I'm at the top, triumphantly surveying the world beneath me, the ghost of my nemesis, Captain Kronos, at rest below. So then on top rope, Michael, following me up afterwards, he makes the climb look easy. And part of me wants him to struggle, but I'm pleased when he reaches me at the top without weighting the rope. Nice route, he says. Glad I didn't lead it though. Nice route, huh? Somehow the thought's not occurred to me. Maybe I'll have to come back and climb it again to see if I agree. But I'll not right now, and maybe on top rope. I didn't do it cleanly like I'd hoped, but I don't feel a need to clear that record. So we go back down to the bottom, and we take a picture, pose for a picture, pointing up at the route, giving a thumbs up, and then we go back to the car to decide where to climb next. And I'm thirsty, and as we get back to the car, I just grab one of the many juice bottles that were filled with water for 5 days in the desert, and I put it to my mouth and I take a swig. And then a taste fills my mouth, and I stop drinking in shock. This is not water. Oh, it's bright green. Oh, could it be Gatorade? Michael drinks Gatorade. No, it's kind of sweet, but it kind of tastes nasty at the same time. I think this goes in cars, not people. So Michael's in the outhouse, and And I sort of wait for him to come out, and I'm sort of getting increasingly nervous. And eventually I go and knock on the door, and I say, Michael, what's the green stuff in that bottle? And I speak pretty quietly, and apprehension makes my voice even quieter than usual. And he's like, oh, hang on, Chris, I'll be out in a moment. So it turns out it's antifreeze, and we find the sort of ready mixed with water because the car has a leaking radiator, so it's for topping up the leaking radiator. And so we find the original bottle, and we read the label, and it says, harmful or fatal if swallowed. If ingested, do not induce vomiting. Contact the poison control centre immediately. So we look at each other and we decide that we agree that climbing is over for the day. So as we drive out of the park to the medical centre, Michael has me sort of take my pulse and record it and sort of write down everything I've had to eat and drink and any symptoms I'm feeling. So I find an empty muesli bar box and I rip it open, I write on the blank grey inside. But there's not really much to record because somehow lunch never gets the time it deserves on climbing trips. And I still feel fine, at least physically I feel fine, but my sense of triumph has evaporated and it's been left behind a dull sense of stupidity and dread. And it's 3 o'clock when we get to the medical centre and they let me inside and then they sort of tape, clip and strap monitors to me and they put an IV in my IV line in my arm and I sort of tell my story and then I hear it repeated again over the phone to the poison control centre. No more than a mouthful, diluted 50-50 with water, 180 pounds, no symptoms. They take some blood samples for testing, and if anything shows up, I'm to be treated with intravenous ethanol. And the prospect doesn't really appeal because I don't drink, and well, at least I didn't then. And I don't really feel like starting here and now, even if it's to save my life. So time passes, and I wait, and the blood pressure cuff clamps on my arm and it releases, and it clamps on my arm and releases, and the IV bag emptied and is changed, and it empties and is changed, and Michael goes back into the park to tell our friends that we're okay and not stuck on a climb in the dark somewhere, and the population of the emergency room turns over, and eventually the test results come back and they're normal, and so breathe a sigh of relief. And the poison control centre, they want a second round of testing. So there's more needles and there's more waiting, but it's easier this time. And eventually Michael comes back and then the test results do too, and it's all clear and I can go. And it's midnight, so it's 9 hours after I got there, and finally I can eat and drink. So then the next morning, back at camp, the bright sunshine of a new day, on the butt of many jokes. Tuffley, if you want to start drinking, there's better things you could try. And so they're not going to let me, they're all glad to see me, but they're not going to let me forget this in a hurry. So I take the bottle, I pose for a photo with it, I give it a thumbs down, and then I relabel it, I stick a label on it. It says, with skull and crossbones, poison, do not drink, plus it tastes bad. And then we pack up and we head out to enjoy the day. And someone suggested we climb a climb called a walk on the wild side, and I said, sure, why not? After yesterday, it would be a piece of cake.